In this lecture, we'll start talking about MongoDB, and we have talked about different, briefly talked about MongoDB before, but we'll go into more details now, and we'll look at how MongoDB is structured, the basics of MongoDB, and how we can compare MongoDB with SQL. Now, MongoDB is a document database. We have talked about what is a document database briefly, like it is similar. It has a key and a document associated with it, right? Instead of a value, we have a document. And MongoDB, the reason we're focusing on this, it is one of the most popular NoSQL databases, and the idea is to give you a taste of what a NoSQL database is and how we can compare it with SQL databases and how it is different from a SQL database. And again, MongoDB is a document database, which means that it stores objects as documents, and that is inside a collection, right? And we have briefly looked at that before. So a collection is again a group of related documents in a MongoDB database, and a document is a single data object in a MongoDB database that is composed of a field and value pairs. So we've looked at it before, that there's a key and then there's a value, which is a document associated with that key. So here is a slide from the previous lecture. So this is again, this is just to illustrate what is a collection and a document. So this is a collection called Flight, has a number of documents in it, and each document has again some shared names. As you can see, these are the shared names, right? And including this, right? And then there's some additional information in each document. So these are documents that contain the information regarding flights. So if there's more information required or needed for a particular flight, you can add more in addition to those shared names. Now, how does MongoDB store documents internally? And so the answer to that is that it stores it in the form of BSON documents. So BSON is binary JSON, right? It is a binary representation of the JSON document format, and each document cannot exceed a size of 16 megabytes. It includes different data types, as you can see over here. So this is a good point to review what is a JSON data type, because it's useful. It's connected with how MongoDB works. So we'll just quickly review the JSON data type. But again, if you're familiar with Python dictionaries, it's easy to understand. It's not really hard, because it's very similar to Python. The JSON document format is pretty standard now, and it's the format that is essentially the standard format to exchange data between computers. And a lot of websites that you see store their data in JSON format. And it stands for, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And as I said earlier, that these documents the format is very similar to Python dictionaries, in the sense that data is stored as key and value pairs. Before looking at the JSON format, let's get an overall view of what are we trying to do, right? So we're trying to so eventually, right, we're gonna get data from a website, and then we're gonna build a database, a MongoDB database with that, with the data we get from the website. And the next step can be, we're not going to do that, but the next step can be that we use that data and maybe upload it to a server and use it for a website, right? But we're not going to do that. We're just going to build a database, because that's what we have been focusing on. So the data pipeline, right? If you're working with a JSON data pipeline or a MongoDB pipeline, this is something that you can do. Like you acquire the data from a website. We'll do that. We'll get data, the data related to weather from a website eventually, and then we're going to ingest it into the MongoDB database, and then we're not going to do this part. But a possible next step is that you load it to a front end so that maybe users can use it on a website. And the discussion, if you want more details on, so I'm using this reference for the MongoDB and PyMongo discussion. So if you want, you can go and check this reference out. Very interesting, quick course on working with big data in Python. Now here is an example that illustrates what a JSON document will look like. So over here we have a key, right? So this is our key, right? And this is our value, right? So this document stores the information of a person, right? So this is the name, so this is the date of birth, right? Which is the key in this case, and then this is the value. And then we have a contact key, right? Now the contact can be different things. It can be email, site, others like cell phone number and so on. So you can add more over here, more data over here. Now this is JSON format, right? Now if you want to store the same information in SQL, just for a comparison, how would this look like? So we know that you need a table with rows and columns where you would have the name, date of birth, so these are the column names, right? Each of these quantities would be column names, right? But now obviously in the JSON format, you have more freedom to add more information so if you want to, let's say, add details of another person, right? You have let's say you have the cell phone number of the other person as well, so you can add that over here. But in a SQL format, you have to be consistent and add data based on whatever the columns you have in the table, right? So in this case, one more thing is that when you add more people in your document for a JSON format, you have to repeat the keys, right? You have to type the keys again, and so that seems to be like a bit of a hassle where you have to repeat the keys. But again, the benefit of that is that you have more freedom to add additional information regarding other other people. So if you have, let's say, more information again of a person's contact number, of another person's contact number, you can add that also, whereas that is not going to be directly possible in a SQL table. Now, one of the benefits of a JSON document is that you can have nested data also. So in this case, if the person has children, right, you can also include that. So in this case, if you want to add children for this person, right, and you can do that as well, and you can further include. So this is more like, again, like a Python list, right, that you're adding over here, and then within that list you can add details regarding the children also. What is the name, date of birth, and so on. So this this is more you can say, in a way, the format is much more rich compared to SQL, where even if you have a nested document, it's not going to be obvious from the table that within a single table whether two rows are nested. So let's look at how this would look like in a SQL table. If you want to store the same information in a SQL table, right, you can do that, for example, by having those two persons' data in two rows, right? But in this case, it's not going to be very obvious that these two are nested, nested to each other, and they're connected with each other. So in SQL now you can get a feeling of, in JSON you can get a feeling of why it has much more freedom and much more freedom than a relational database, where you can have one person, even in a single document, if you have more details about a person's contact or their children, you can add that, and whereas in SQL you won't be able to do that in a direct way. There are other possible ways where you can have multiple tables, but not in a direct way as compared to JSON. We'll discuss the MongoDB syntax in more detail in the following classes, but this is just a comparison of how the two, how different SQL and MongoDB are, or how similar they are. So if you want to, let's say, create a database in SQL or MongoDB, right? So these are this is the syntax that you would use in SQL, right? Create database test. We have seen this, and if you want to do it in MongoDB, just use test. So it's pretty short in MongoDB. If you want to create a table, we know the format we use: create table, and then the table name, and then parentheses, and so on. So in MongoDB, we the corresponding object is a collection. So this is the database, the name of the database, and then you would say create collection, and then the name test. Record, right? So if you want to, let's say, select a record or a column in SQL, we know we use the select statement, right? And if we want to do the same thing in, well, a similar thing like to select a document, we would use db.test, right? So the name of the database, and then we would use find one. So this would select a one document from the database. So we'll look at examples when we get to. Now here is another example on how you would compare indexing between SQL and MongoDB. So in SQL, if let's say we want the information of a particular record, or for example, we want to extract out the information of David, let's say, we would use the where clause along with the select statement, and then we would say where name is equal to David, right? In MongoDB, we would type in the database and the collection. We would say dot find, right, in parentheses name. Now at this point, let's make sure that you have MongoDB installed on your computers. So go ahead, open command prompt, and then type conda install -c and a conda MongoDB. So this is when you installed Anaconda, when you installed Jupyter, you must have used, we used Anaconda for that, and so that comes with a lot of repositories where you can install other packages. So MongoDB, you can install MongoDB using Conda also, and then once this is complete, make sure you create a directory in the C drive, and then /data/db. So this is basically gonna create a directory that for which in which we're gonna store the database when we work with MongoDB. Now, in order to make sure that MongoDB is installed properly on your computer, go ahead and open up the command prompt and type in MongoD, just D, not a B with it. So once you do that, you'll get a bunch of lines printed out. So as you can see over here, you type in MongoD, and then it's just going to give you the version and so on, and then it's just basically going to build the environment which gets the server ready for us to start running MongoDB examples. And the next thing is you open up a new terminal and type just Mongo in it now. Once you do that, it's just gonna run the Mongo shell. And again, we're gonna mostly work with PyMongo, but before that, we'll get an idea of how MongoDB syntax works itself, but we're going to use the PyMongo API to use MongoDB. So make sure that this runs. The output is truncated over here. Once this MongoDB shell starts and it does not give any errors, we'll start working on MongoDB examples next time. So this time, let's just make sure that you have it installed properly, and let me know if you in the discussion section if you have any issues regarding this. If you're using a different machine, you can look up the instructions on the MongoDB website on how to install it. This is mainly for Windows, right? But if you're using a Mac or a Linux operating system, you can look up the MongoDB website on how the installation works. But if you come across any issues, let me know in the discussion section.